I had to laugh the other day when I saw a question posted on Reddit by someone whose screen name is Extension Moose 1863 when he says, "Is it just me, or is curling like 75% of Olympic coverage?" And many people responded that it wasn't just him. One Canadian person responded, "It's so funny that they'll show like 25 people throwing themselves off the side of a cliff at 95 kilometers per hour and then cut back to the curling match where the score has gone from 1-0 to 1-1. And it's not a surprise you're seeing so much curling in the Olympic coverage because by the end of the 2026 Olympics, they will have had 147 curling matches shoved into just 18 days. But it's only been a medal sport since 1998, so if you just started to become a fan of curling, you might come under the impression that it's a relatively new sport that was apparently invented in Canada if you were to watch it. But that's, of course, not the case at all. The sport dates back at least to the 16th century, and its place of origin might be a surprise to you. Often called chess on ice, it's a more complex sport than it appears, but it has a history that deserves to be remembered. There is some historical question as to where curling originated. One of the earliest written histories of the sport, written in 1811, opines the origin of this game is yet involved in darkness. The two main contenders for its invention are Scotland and the Low Countries, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. As with the early history of many sports, documentation of its earliest iterations are scarce or non-existent. The oldest known curling stones come from the 16th century and were found in Scotland. The most famous and likely oldest is the Stirling Stone, a 26-pound black basalt stone found in the Milton Bog in Stirling, Scotland. On it is carved the words STJSB Stirling and the date 1511. It has two handholds that would allow the curler to send it roaring, as they call it, across the ice. The term roaring comes from the sound the stone makes as it slides, which is why the sport is called the roaring game. Notary John McQuinn recorded stone throwing across the ice between John Sclater, a monk, and Gavin Hamilton at Paisley Abbey in 1541. Meanwhile, Peter Bruegel the Younger, a Flemish painter, depicts peasants curling in the 1565 painting Winter Landscape with a bird trap and the hunters in the snow. This version is called Bavarian curling or ice stock sport. It's a related but distinct sport. Bavarian curling involves smaller sliders, traditionally made of wood or metal, but today generally made of plastics or other synthetic material with a handle on the top. The goal is similar to curling or shuffleboard, where players slide the stocks across a surface at a target, or to see who can slide them the furthest. A popular story says that the sport was played as early as 1192, as Leopold V, Duke of Austria, was supposedly playing the sport on the Danube River when he was informed of the capture of Richard the Lionheart, though this is probably apocryphal. Other sources suggest that similar games originate in Scandinavia as early as the 13th century, but most history suggests more recent origins. The Low Countries and Scotland had close ties in the 15th and 16th centuries, as the Low Countries were Scotland's primary trading partner and an important cultural influence. This further muddies exactly where the sport may have originated. Legend and tradition says that the Scottish kings were keen curlers, especially James IV, king from 1488 to 1513. An 1890 treatise on curling by John Kerr notes that if the game had been in any degree popular in his reign, James would have been found enjoying it. He's associated with a silver curling stone supposedly left by him to be played for annually by the parishes in the Carse of Gowrie, but evidence is lacking to support that claim. No mention of a silver curling stone is made in the king's expenditures, though sports like archery and golf are mentioned. The supposed silver stone was mentioned in an 1830 text, which claimed that tradition reports that it was given by James IV of Scotland, who was a keen curler. Actually, there's little evidence that James IV or his successors, James V, VI, or Mary, Queen of Scots, played the game. The first instance of the word curling in relation to the sport doesn't come until the 17th century in a book of poetry by Henry Adamson. Most sources, such as the dictionaries of the Scots language, suggest the term curling describes the movement of the stone. In the 1999 book Curling, The History, the Players, the Game, author and professional curler Warren Hansen suggests instead it came from the old verb curr, to make a low or hoarse murmuring sound. Using Adamson's poem, Kerr's History of Curling identifies one of the earliest known curlers as George Ruthven, born around 1545. Mentions in the 17th century became more numerous, and numerous bishops and other men of the cloth were noted players, including Bishop George Graham, who was accused of curling on the ice on the Sabbath day. And Covenanter minister William Guthrie had a stone that was still extant in 1890. By the late 17th century, the sport was being played by high-status men and lairds, as Sir William Scott of Harden was playing at the curling when he was informed that men were coming to apprehend him. Early small curling stones, as light as 5 pounds, were called lufies, from a Scots word meaning the palm of the hand, but they were eventually replaced by larger stones as time went on. The earliest curling stones were not standardized. The sterling stone is more rectangular than round, and most stones were merely found rather than manufactured. Like any sport, the rules took time to standardize. As Hansen puts it, as players discovered that more could be done with heavy round stones, the skill level increased and gradually interest in the game began to grow. In 1693, a writer related that the small Orkney island of Coppensay, in which and in several other places of this country are to be found in great plenty excellent stones for the game called curling. The stones were often multi-use, used for practical purposes like loom weights in the summer and for curling in the winter. The sport became well established in Scotland in the 1700s. The Kilsyth Curling Club claims to be the first curling club in the world, formed in 1716. Some other clubs have claimed earlier foundations. The Kilsyth Club also claims to have the first purpose-built curling ponds at Colzium. In 1772, Thomas Pennant traveled through Scotland, noting that curling is a favorite in the region, though unknown in England. An 1811 text by J. Ramsay, a member of the Duddington Curling Society, explains the game of curling may justly be regarded as one of our national amusements. It is practiced in the winter during the time of frost and consists in sliding stones along the ice to a particular mark. It has some resemblance to the games of bowls and billiards. Perhaps the earliest attempt to write a history of the sport, Ramsay includes an explanation of the rules. The stones employed are made from blocks of whinstone or granite of a close texture, free from cracks and capable of taking a fine polish. The book explains that shape had been standardized to a spherical form flattened above and below and between 30 and 60 pounds, though misshapen blocks were still used in many parts. They were no longer using mere handholds on the stones, but had added the more convenient form of bent wooden and iron handles, though they weren't universal. Curlers then as today gathered for bone spells, the name for a curling tournament. The rink was between 30 to 50 yards in length, according to the intensity of the frost, with a target made in the ice. To stand on the ice, the book relates players used to use crampets, flat pieces of iron with 4 sharp spikes below attached to the shoe, but by 1811 used hacks, a hole dug in the ice to put one's shoe as they launched the stone. Other early versions included the foot iron and trickers or triggers. These were pieces of iron stuck into the ice that players could step on. Brooms were also used from the beginning. Hansen writes that the broom was deemed so important that many clubs set rules for its use, or fined members who appeared on the ice without it. The early brooms were called cows and were made by binding together shrub branches. At Duddington, Ramsay says there were 8 players in a game, 2 teams of 4, with each player using 2 stones. But he notes in most places players only have 1 stone apiece and play 8 against 8. From there, Ramsay's description is very similar to the modern game. The first player aims to put their stone nearest the center of the target, with subsequent players attempting to guard their team's stone or knock opponents' stones away. Scoring was also the same. The team with the stone nearest the button, or T at the center of the target, earns 1 point per stone that is closer than the opponent's best stone. Ramsay also notes that the game was already then being played in Canada. The Royal Montreal Curling Club, the oldest curling club in North America, was formed by Scottish-Canadian immigrants in 1807. The 19th century, as Kerr noted, was an era of the modern game. Ramsay's 1811 account shows that the rules were still loose and changed depending upon where the game was being played, but that soon changed. The International Olympic Committee recognizes the Grand Caledonian Curling Club, organized in 1838, as the club that developed official rules for the game. These rules hewed closely to the rules as described by the Duddington Club, but mandated a rink length of 42 yards. Said matches should generally consist of 21 shots and standardized stone size and weight. It also favored the 4-player 2 stones apiece system. John Kearney, the club's first president, was also the inventor of the system of artificial pond making and of the foot iron, in common use throughout the 19th century. The club was given a royal charter in 1843 after Queen Victoria and Prince Albert witnessed curling played on a polished wood ballroom floor in the Scone Palace. The Queen was even said to have tried her hand at the game, and Albert was given 2 curling stones with silver handles by the Earl of Mansfield, president of the club. Prince Albert was then recognized as the club's patron. And while the Caledonian Club standardized rules, it apparently took some time for all of the Scottish clubs to accept them. Since 2006, the Winter Olympics curling stones have all come from a single source. Ailsa Craig, a small island in the Firth of Clyde, has particular geological conditions that allow for quality granite without cracks, perfect for curling stones. The stones given to Prince Albert in 1842 were made of the finest Ailsa Craig granite. Today, the Cays of Scotland is the only UK-based manufacturer of curling stones. In addition to Ailsa Craig, the Trevor granite quarry in Wales is another important source. Generally, the stones today will be made of two kinds of stone. In isostones, the running band will generally be of a blue hone, while the rest of the stone, the striking surface, is made of common green. While Scotland is the birthplace of modern curling, the sport has been exported to many other parts of the world. Perhaps nowhere has taken the sport on as well as Canada. According to Hansen, shortly after Quebec was captured by the British in 1759, members of the 78th Highlanders supposedly melted down cannonballs for use as curling stones on the St. Charles River. In Canada, where they had no access to the granite quarries of Ailsa Craig, curlers would continue to use iron for their stones. Some were made with wood ringed with iron. In 1847, the clubs Quebec and Ontario became the Canadian branch of the Royal Caledonian Club. The first club in the U.S. is generally said to be the Orchard Lake Curling Club, formed around 1832, again by a Scotsman, near Detroit. They used neither stone nor metal, but wood. In 1867, various clubs in the U.S. formed into the Grand National Curling Club of America. The first indoor rink was likely in 1847 in Montreal. There wasn't an indoor rink in Scotland until 1907 when one was opened in Glasgow. The sport quickly became quite popular in Canada. By 1888, a bone spell in Winnipeg drew 62 teams from all parts of Canada and the United States. The Canadian Curling Association formed in 1935, the first national body for the sport in Canada. Canada became a center for innovation, though they did import Scottish stones. The sport was struck by war when 278 Scottish stones bound for Canada were lost, along with 117 lives, when the British liner Athenia was sunk by a U-boat in 1939. U.S. curling was apparently hindered by warm weather in the early 20th century, with the Grand National Curling Club writing in 1913 that they had not issued our annual since 1905, as the curling conditions have not been very good here, before turning to indoor rinks in the middle of the century. While curling might seem to have been a relatively recent addition to the Winter Olympics, curling was played in what is now recognized as the first Winter Olympics in 1924, contested by only 3 countries: Great Britain, Sweden, and France. Great Britain took the gold. The British team was made up of 4 Scotsmen, captained or skipped, as it's called, by William K. Jackson, along with a reserve team. But the story of curling at the 1924 Olympics became somewhat muddled. For much of the 20th century, it was described as a demonstration event, meaning that it wasn't medaled. The Curling History blog, written by curling historian David B. Smith and former editor of Scottish curler magazine Bob Cowan, surmises that it must simply have been conflated with the 1932 Winter Olympics, where curling was a demonstration event. But, they note, neither the Olympic Committee nor publications around the 1924 Games ever refer to it as a demonstration sport. In the British Olympic Association report of the Games, F. G. L. Ferry wrote that there are some who say that curling is not a sport which ought to be included. The fact remains that the IOC included curling in their program, and Great Britain entered and won. The 1924 medal was not officially recognized by the International Olympic Committee until 2006, shortly before the Games in Turin, Italy. The sport continued to grow and professionalize in the 20th century. In 1959, the Scotch Cup was first held between Canadian and Scottish teams. Canada swept the 5-game series, led by Ernie Richardson. The USA and Sweden joined in the years that followed. Canada won the first 6 titles. The Scotch Cup was rebranded as the Air Canada Silver Broom in 1968, officially sanctioned as the World Curling Championships. Women's team began competing in 1979. In 1965, the Royal Caledonian Club formed an international committee, which became the Independent International Curling Federation in 1982, and in 1991, the World Curling Federation. Curling was held as a demonstration sport in the 1988 and 1992 Olympics and finally added as a medal event in 1998. Warren Hansen, among others, played a significant role before the 1988 Olympics in elevating and professionalizing the sport to a level of Olympic play. Curling has had its controversies in the modern era. The corn brooms of the past, which often resemble household brooms, are now specialized, with fiberglass or carbon fiber tube handles. In 2014, directional fabric brooms appeared, but caused significant controversy in what came to be called Broomgate. Now only a single standardized brush head is approved by the World Curling Federation. In this year's Olympics, members of the Swedish team accused members of the Canadian team of illegally touching the stone after it has been released. Coined Touchgate by the press, the accusation has prompted the World Curling Federation to adjust its umpiring setup. This year, 13 nations are participating in curling at the Winter Games across 3 divisions, men's, women's, and mixed double. Curling has become more popular in the United States since the men's team won the first American gold medal in curling at the Olympics in 2018. U.S. membership in curling organizations has doubled since 1998, but it's also growing worldwide. China became the first Asian country to get a medal in curling in 2010, and in 2018, both Japan and South Korea did. And according to the World Curling Federation, they have 74 member affiliations as of 2024, including the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Pakistan, and Monaco. And all this interest at the Olympics seems very likely to draw in more new players for this surprisingly old sport. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode of The History Guy, and if you did, please feel free to like and subscribe and share The History Guy with your friends. And if you also believe that history deserves to be remembered, then you can support The History Guy as a member on YouTube, a supporter on our community at Locals, or as a patron on Patreon. You can also check out our great merchandise shop or book a special message from The History Guy on Cameo. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you good? You want to be? Okay. You sure? We're happy where we are? Okay, good boy. Ah! Ouch! Okay. Where are we? Actually, the sport dates back at least to the 16th century. Its place of origin might be a surprise to you. Are you surprised? Gosh darn it. We were doing so well. That's fine. Those are only claws. I don't need blood. I don't need all my blood. More cat outtakes than ever in history. Are you ready? What do you see? We were doing so well. Can I get in the picture? Thank you, Pocky. Is this cat in control or not? Oh, see, now look at your paws. This doesn't look comfortable. Are you still with me? Are we still together? Aren't you my friend? Goodness. What'd you see? Do you see something? Oh, let's try again. What do you think of the Winter Olympics? Are you watching curling? Ice dancing? Is ice dancing your sport? You don't go in the snow. Okay. There you have it. Now you don't want to be put down.